Okay, thank you for joining us for the February meeting of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. Closed captioning is available on the desktop version of Microsoft Teams. To enable closed captioning, click the three dots at the top of the window and click Turn on Live Captions. Unfortunately, captioning is not available for the web browser of Teams. I've also pasted the agenda in the chat for those who need it, and we can get started. I will do a roll call. It's 8:34. Call to order. Roll call. Aaron Arteaga.
Present.
Anna Baliakova.
Present with Kira as well.
Awesome. Welcome, Kira. Emily Cadman.
Here. Present.
Mitchell Henke.
Present.
Montavious Jones.
Present.
Kathleen Minnick.
Present.
Ben Teal.
Present.
Barry Weber.
Present.
Stephen Owen.
Said he wasn't going to make.
That's perfect attendance. We still do not have a public safety rep. And then Monica Walker-Smith.
Present.
Welcome, Monica. Monica's the new DCD rep. This is her first official meeting. So with that, I will turn it over to Mitch.
Thanks. So we have a pretty small agenda, but I think two relatively large items. But I guess we'll get started with approving the minutes from last time, from December or January's meeting minutes.
I move to approve.
My second.
And then Montavious.
Yes, I think so. All right, minutes have been approved. Did we want to do or would you mind, Monica, doing like a brief introduction?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to be on this committee. Just a little background about myself. So I'm urban planner in the Department of City Development. I'm in the long range planning part of that unit. So yeah, I work on a lot of neighborhood plans, comprehensive plans and updates. I'm kind of taking over the for Kevin Kushel, who moved on to Clark Street Neighborhood Initiative. So yeah, I'm really excited to be able to, maybe share with this group some of the planning work that we're doing over and the DCD, and then also to take some of the concerns, priorities that come out of this group and share them with colleagues. So we have better coordination between land use and transportation planning. So yeah, excited to be part of this group and be the DCD rep.
Cool. Very glad to have you on the committee. I guess with that, we'll get to our first agenda item, which is snow and ice removal. And I think we have a couple DPW folks here to speak to that.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you both.
Absolutely. I'm Danielle Rodriguez. I am DPW's Director of Operation, and I oversee the snow and ice removal in the city.
And Kevin Hughes, City Engineer, also within DPW.
Cool. And I guess just for the committee and the public kind of attending, for this, we're going to limit comment to committee members first, and then we'll hear from the public. So please hold anything. I think you can type in chat at any point. We'll make note of it. But otherwise, give the floor to DPW to kind of share.
Sure, absolutely. So I did take a look at some questions. It looked like they focused on a couple things. What I'll do is I'll first just explain a little bit about private residents and properties and the complaint process. And so city ordinance does require that snow and ice be cleared. In fact, I'll read straight from the ordinance. It is 116-8, sidewalks to be kept clean. It is all snow and ice on the entire paved surface within 24 hours after the snow or ice has ceased to fall. And then I believe there was an additional question about if it were to ice back over. And there is some language that addresses that. And essentially, you must keep the sidewalk free from hazard for users of the sidewalk by applying sand, abrasive material, or any product that melts ice to the entire paved surface. And so essentially the way DPW works with that is that any complaints that come in to our call center or online, at the end of the day, we send to a contractor. So we go out, we inspect it, we post the property. Those properties are sent to a contractor immediately that night. And usually that contractor starts working that night to clear the snow and ice from the sidewalk through the next morning until all complaints have been handled and taken care of. So I don't know if there's any questions additional about that.
If any committee members have any questions, please speak up. But I guess so the complaint, like, let's say I complain that there's ice on, just in front of a property tomorrow. You'll get that in the middle of the day. They'll go in with all the other ones that you got during the day. And you'll send somebody out to inspect it first?
Correct, unless you provide a picture
Okay,
in the online complaint.
so that's helpful for you.
That
to
is helpful.
Reduce the amount of work.
Yes, that a picture is helpful. Otherwise, we will send somebody to look at it first.
Which I assume is difficult.
It can be.
More difficult.
Yeah, more difficult, and it also depends when the complaint comes in. If we're in the middle of a snowstorm, that becomes extremely challenging. If it's a couple days after, we can respond very quickly.
And you get to all of the complaints, I assume they all get together?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Do we have any questions or comments from committee members on that aspect?
Hey, could you repeat one more time the best way to lodge that complaint? Would that be more online or calling? I missed that part.
So really, there's either way is a good way. You can call 286-CITY and speak to a phone representative and give the information that way. Or you can go online or to our mobile app and report that. Either way, it will come through just as quickly.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I believe there was also some feedback about our MKE mobile app and just providing some clarification because there's a couple different places that potentially a resident might go to lodge a complaint or to record it. And that's something we're taking a look at. When that application was originally set up, they did so in a manner that was specific to the departments. And because various departments have various oversight, I looked at it, I agree, it's not as intuitive as it could be. So right now I have a group of people, a small ad hoc committee, if you will, just taking a look overall at how we make that more resident friendly and more clear and concise.
Specifically, I think the question was about in the app, there's like private property report, city property report, city owned vacant land or something in which.
No one would know that.
Right.
Absolutely. Point well taken. So I appreciate the feedback. That's actually very helpful and will help hopefully residents report quickly.
Do residents have an opportunity to clear it themselves after a complaint or generally no?
Well, they can, it's their property, right? So a complaint comes in.
But do they get like a warning from you or anything?
So they do get a warning, there's a posting. However, we're still dispatching that contractor right away.
Okay.
Because we do not want to create a delay. So the contractor may show up and the resident has already cleared it. That's fine too, obviously. The goal is to get compliance.
Yeah, Ben.
Hi, thanks very much for clarifying and offering all this background information. I'm wondering if there are any opportunities for this committee's members to help or advise your ad hoc committee?
There absolutely is. I would welcome that if you, someone gets, whoever wants to volunteer, name to me and we connect. We'll definitely include you in conversations. That'd be appreciated.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
How much, I guess, maybe this, I don't know how aware anybody is of the, like how this intersects with state law, if at all, like, is the 24 hours something that the city has decided?
So I wasn't able to get to the state law quickly, but my compliance section says specifically, there isn't anything that impedes us. You know, there isn't any state law that we feel needs to be updated or changed to help us move forward more effectively, as far as I'm aware.
So the time frame is set by the city and could be changed by the city.
Perhaps. I didn't read the state law. I didn't read it yet, but I can follow back up with you and you can disseminate that
Yeah,
information.
that would be great. Did any other committee members have any questions specifically on sidewalk clearance?
I'm wondering, this is Kathy, I'm wondering if what the process is around bus stops. Like busy intersections and bus stops. I'm kind of thinking of Jolene Waldroff in particular and how that happened, but I'm just wondering, you know, what if we can have a discussion about how that can be better addressed.
Sure. So bus stops are done by our end loader operator. So we have a private contractor that comes in. We typically do that work as soon as practical within our operation. Typically it's done at night because it's the least impactful, but we try to get out there as soon as we can. It really depends on how much snow falls and what is going on. But per the ordinances, the property owner is responsible for the corners, not necessarily, you know, into the shelters per se, but if there's a corner, the property owner would be responsible for that. But the city does come out and
Curb
clear.
cuts and everything would be.
Yes, yes. But the city will come out, obviously, when, like the last storm, we have a lot of snow. We do come out and create space on those bus stops.
Thank you.
So this is kind of a shift, but I was also kind of curious about the clearing of pedestrian medians or islands. Is that city responsibility?
Sure. So we do have a practice of clearing those if they've created an undue hardship for the public. So that's sort of our threshold. We take a look at, has our plowing operation pushed large mountains of snow that make it impassable? Then we do deploy a crew of staff that go out with a small trackless and mechanically clear that to the best of our ability.
But there's no like, it's as needed. Like it's not like major roadways or anything where you know you'll be out there clearing it regardless.
Correct. It's as needed. There are some areas that we've identified in advance that we know are frequently used, are extremely busy, and would cause a lot of safety issues that we do proactively clear almost every operation. But to clear every single median pedestrian way throughout the city would be pretty intensive. So again, complaints do help because that data pushes if something wasn't actively used and now it's starting to become actively used, that data helps us know to start looking at it more closely.
I assume, I guess the related question was like raised or separated bike lanes also city's responsibility. Is that closer to pedestrian islands and being cleared or streets and that they'll be proactively?
Sure, closer to streets. So we do have a very active and I would say pretty robust protected bike lane process. We do brine them ahead of a storm. And we do have specialized equipment that run at the same time as our street clearing to get those done. It's a smaller fleet of pieces of equipment. So if there are breakdowns or other issues with that equipment, it can cause some delays,
Sure.
but it isn't typically significant delays.
Ben?
I'm wondering if you can illuminate some of the I'm not sure how to phrase this, differences or confusion surrounding specifically the KK River Trail, which seems to be county and city or both or neither sometimes. I don't know. I've gotten a lot of conflicting information about whose jurisdiction that is.
Forestry as a contractor. Okay.
For plowing specifically.
Sure, I can clear that up. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Michael add in if I don't say all the right stuff. So that sounds like it is done by a contractor, and the threshold is after 4 inches of snowfall is when that contractor goes out and addresses it.
And is that specific to the KK River Trail itself, or are there other places and trails where the county and the city overlap?
So it's what Danielle mentioned is specific to city-owned trails.
Okay.
So the KK River Trail, at least as we define it, is entirely owned by the city. The Beer Line Trail is another example, entirely owned by the city. And then we are adding trails as well. So this year, for example, the 20th Street Powerline Corridor Trail will be another trail that the city will own and operate and maintain.
Thank you. Great.
Do any other committee members have questions or comments on anything related to snow or ice clearing? I guess, so my question is like, are there things that constrain you? Like what, I'm curious, how can we do better, or how can we help do better? Like, what are the limiting factors? Is it people?
And you mean
Equipment.
specifically like sidewalks or bike lanes?
Yeah,
or
more so those.
Okay, absolutely. So I would say the last several years, we've absolutely had some constraints on staffing, retention, attracting staff. That seems to be, and all of these staff do have to have CDLs. So that is in very high demand across the country. So a lot of municipalities are finding these same constraints. I would say that tide is turning right now. We're seeing better retention. So last winter about this time, our snow and ice team and our CDL drivers, that was our first priority. So we made sure they were fully staffed to the best of our ability. But we were at about a 28% vacancy rate. And that doesn't even include your sick people who are sick, vacation, injury, that sort of thing. We are now at a 14% vacancy rate, so that is trending upwards. So we're feeling a lot more confident. But in that, these are new employees, right? So they take several years to really get proficient. We are becoming more and more flexible, more dynamic. We are looking at a lot of different ways to utilize different types of equipment in different areas. We work really closely with our infrastructure partners on design modifications if need be, and just trying to figure out what is the best design to balance out usability with operations.
Mike's designing a bike lane. Please make it easy to clear.
Yes, we work very closely, and as needed, sometimes,
I mean, sorry.
and as needed, it isn't something that it's a one and done.
Mm-hmm.
Things can be installed and work very well, and then something might come up, and if we need to make adjustments, our areas talk and collaborate often.
So I think I want to add a little bit on that because just to affirm what Danielle just said, as far as we do definitely talk to each other, consult each other, talk about new ideas. I think anybody who's paying attention has noticed that we've got a lot of different types and styles of things we're implementing right now. And snow and ice clearing is a key part of the consideration, especially when we're talking about lane widths and for bikes. I'm talking about some lane widths and even the turning movements, you know, behind a protected island, that type of thing. So we basically have two main types of equipment that we use to clear. Trackless, which the blade can be as small as I believe about 5 feet or so, wide, I should say. And then we also use a fleet of pickup trucks to clear, and those we typically want about an 8-foot clear zone for those pickup truck operators. And so that, you know, that impacts what the lanes look like. And the reason that we need to think about that is the trackless are small vehicles. They move relatively slowly, about 20 miles an hour max. And when they're clearing, obviously they're going slower than that. And so it's difficult for them to get across the city in a quick manner. It's also, frankly, with the reckless driving issues we've been having, it's also not something we like to send out at 3 a.m. out onto the streets. So we try to restrict that more to daytime clearing operations. And so, yeah, so when Isabel, Mike, I'm involved, any of our other designers, Jesse's involved, we try to have those conversations, like where can we expect a track list to, what parts of the city can we expect a track list to get to more easily? What's the length that's reasonable to expect them to clear after a snow event or during, versus, you know, where should we move forward with 8-foot lanes? And I would say our preference within infrastructure has been to try, if we can, to default to that 8-foot clear zone. There's a tension there, though. I mean, I've heard feedback from people that, you know, we're making it 8 feet wide so a pickup truck can get into it.
Mhm.
That means a car can get into it, right? Like that is a tension there. And so that's just something I think everybody should be aware of, right?
Walnut, an example of an 8-foot.
Walnut, the pin downs were 8 feet. The 12th to 20th section, that's I think 6.5 feet. So that's the trackless assumption there. But if you're familiar with that stretch of Walnut, you know that our yard is right on 14th and Walnut, right? So it's very easy and safe for the trackless operator to get out onto that stretch. So it's just one of those things where we're going to continue to learn and evolve and talk with our colleagues in operations about this, but just some awareness of, I guess, mostly to say, like, give us feedback, let us know what you're seeing so we can continue to improve. But that's our thought process. That's why you're seeing what you're seeing being put out there right now. So
Excellent. Thank you.
There's a comment in the chat from Ben Teal. He said, I think I've noticed that bike lanes, especially protected, have been cleared much sooner and much better this year than past years. Thank you so much for all of your hard work.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll pass that along to the operators. They take a lot of pride in those bike lanes.
Any other committee members have anything? Otherwise, we can open it up. Sure. Jake? Or sorry, Anna?
Sorry, waiting to the last possible moment. Misdirection. Sorry, returning a little bit to the topic of the pedestrian islands and medians. Do we see any path towards, like, you know, I understand despite the shared revenue deal, there are still fiscal constraints, but do we see any path towards increasing our staffing so that we can cover more of those islands and medians, even is sort of in the further out places? I'm definitely going to take the note about reporting things, but it is a big obstacle, especially, you know, when you do get the big piles. It's not just getting through the island, but it's also a visibility thing. Like, you're not only no longer on an island, but you're, you know, standing in the street, but you're also hard to see around the snow. So I think that one's really tricky.
Sure. Yeah, no, thank you for that feedback. And I will just start with, we are conscientious of when those boulevards and medians at the end pile snow so high that it creates visibility, and we actually will send out private contractor end loaders to knock those piles down and back. It unfortunately just takes a little while, because first we're clearing and piling, and then we're coming back and pushing down. And there is a specific reason why, and that's because our equipment, our fleet of 150 or so plows and packer plows, those plows do not have the ability to push up. They just push straight or side to side. And so when those piles do, get dangerous, our supervisors are right away calling in contracted end loaders to come in and start knocking those piles back and down and pushing them in further. So that's the first thing I'll respond to that. Do I foresee us increasing staffing? I mean, sure, I would love that. I just don't know if it's realistic. Obviously, though, that gives me the challenge of how do I figure out the best flexibility and the best way to utilize the resources I do have. And so I'm always open to new and different ways. I'm constantly talking to the different departments about potential people and resources that could come help or address issues, and how can we proactively look at those things. I'm again always open to suggestions and always talking to try to explore different ways of moving staff around and utilizing them the best way we can with what we've got.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us. I think the one other thing I'd note on the median and island issue is, I don't know, I'm sure you're already looking at all this, but for me, especially when those islands are close to a bus stop or a bus transfer point, the one that's a pain point for me personally is the Center, Lisbon, and 60th, but I'm sure that's not the only place in the city. But those places where you're having to cross the street to make a transfer, I don't know if there's, I don't know how you do your prioritization, but I think those key bus transfer points would be something I would love to see prioritized. And yeah, I will definitely be reporting in the future. I don't know how much more snow we'll get this winter, but we'll definitely.
Right. Knock on wood. Hopefully not. Thank you. No, and I appreciate the specific areas because this is something, that I am constantly looking at. If I have the information and data, and I understand the areas, which for the most part we do, I can go out and assess. Is this something that we should add to a specialized route or have special consideration for because of the traffic or the amount of pedestrians and buses that converge there. So that's something we look at every season, as we're getting feedback or data on them. So I appreciate that.
Into something that Anna just said. So what is the prioritization that your office or department looks at? Is it streets, then sidewalks, then bus stop? How does that flow so we have a better understanding? I know it's main streets and then the residential streets, but as a whole ecosystem.
That's actually a wonderful question.
Oh, thank you,
I love it. Okay, so this is how we look at this as far as prioritization, knowing that even as I explain them to you, typically, and as long as we have enough staff, they are actually running at the same time. And so I'll sort of group them. And the first grouping is going to be your emergency routes and your emergency thoroughfares, which typically end up being your main streets. And our level of service, which is an important part to add in because it's flexible, is safe and passable for conditions and road speeds that are correlated to what's happening, right? So we do not expect complete dry and bare pavement before we move on to the next thing. What we look at it as is your emergency routes, your main streets, and the turn lanes that are correlated on those should be safe and passable in a manner so that people are slowing down because it's snowing out. We used to go all the way to the curb and into the parking lanes, but we have gotten a lot of feedback from residents and from our elected officials that say get into our residential streets quicker. So now let me back up before I go to residentials. That's sort of the second block. At the same time we're doing those emergency routes and main lanes, we are also doing at the exact same time our our protected bike lanes. And then our unprotected bike lanes are part of this, in our mind, the street infrastructure. So they're done at the exact same time. So that all goes first. And then as soon as we can, we start to pivot into the neighborhoods because we recognize that if people can't get off of their residential street and onto the main, that's not very helpful. Each weather event dictates a different response on those. Sometimes it's just what we call pass down the middle so that people can get out to that main street. Other times, we try to go curb to curb right away. It really depends on how much snow we're expecting, if we're expecting a deep freeze, or are we expecting it to melt back? So those are decisions that we make in real time. Every single time is a different decision. Then we'll go back to main streets, and then we'll start to deploy what we call our trackless crew. And that's the crew that goes out and does all of our non-accessible routes, our sidewalks that are in front of city-owned properties, near parks, over bridges. All of that starts to go out at that same time. After that, we go into what we consider cleanup mode. And now we start moving through the entire city curb to curb. And if we've created undue hardship on our corner cuts, we will deploy our contracted end loaders or our trackless crew to go to every single corner throughout the city and methodically move through that. For a tip, now this is just in general to give you a sense. For a typical, we'll say 4-inch snowfall without a deep freeze, that entire process takes somewhere between 5 and 6 days, sometimes longer, depending on staffing levels.
Can I ask how many people you have in your office on snow clearing?
Sure. So we have a variety of staff that come from all of DPW, including infrastructure. We have about 50, and so keeping in mind that this runs 24/7. And so there's usually we'll say a morning shift and a PM shift, and they all work 12 hours back to back.
And there's a lot of ground.
Yeah, so they're 12 hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Then the next shift comes in 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. We work 24/7 till this is all done. There's about 50 office staff, supervisors, and managers that work. And then we have about 250 to 300 what we'll call drivers that get in the various pieces of equipment, whether it's a packer plow, what we call a sensor, triaxles, and our trackless. Those are all CDL required positions. So somewhere between 300 and 400 staff, depending on how well staffed we are and the event. If it's a 2 inches, we might scale that down a little bit. If it's 5, 6, or like we saw the last snowstorm, we try to ramp up and what we call all hands on deck. And we're basically saying we need everybody to come in and just try to help us manage this.
I think it's important, and Danielle, correct me if I'm misspeaking here, but in defense of the operation that you guys do, and to your credit, especially when it's an all hands on deck event, those people have other jobs.
Yes.
Like this is overtime work.
Yes.
This is 12-hour shifts on top of what they're already doing for the city.
Correct.
My staff are involved in many cases, and of course the ops staff are. And so that's the other piece just to think about. We don't have like a snow and ice crew that's just like hanging out all summer, not doing stuff and waiting for winter. So these are all people whose jobs continue year round in addition to snow and ice work.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to expand on that because I think it's really important to recognize that, the office staff, the supervisors, these are people that are supposed to be paying our bills, or doing our payroll, or doing any type of ancillary services that keep our business operations running. They're pulled from their normal job and they have to focus on this. Our drivers, these are our arborists who prune the trees during the winter. These are our garbage and recycle staff. So oftentimes, the public will have concerns, rightfully so. Their garbage is delayed, their recycling pickup is delayed. That's because these people are working snow and ice, again, 12 hours back to back. Once they're done, and I'll put that in air quotes, usually now they have to go catch up. So now they're working their off days and the times that would be their rest periods, and they're working now 10 to 12 hours, catching up on garbage and recycling collections. Again, there are pothole fillers in our streets area, there are sewers staff. So all these staff flood my area for snow and ice. And that's, if you ever watch Public Works, I'll talk a lot about, we prioritize snow and ice. That is our priority when it's happening, but it's our ancillary services that could suffer. And when I say ancillary, it's not to downgrade them, because certainly filling potholes, collecting garbage, paying our bills, it is still a top priority as well. So it is a juggle.
Yes, no, I appreciate that explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah, like the office staff, that support staff, did they work the 12-hour shifts as well?
Yes.
I mean, because back in the day, they used to, you'd come in and you were there for the duration. You could be there for 24, 36 hours. The drivers got broken, but the office staff never did.
No, so we break the office staff as well, 12-hour rotations. Now, that's not to say, let's say, again, weather dependent, let's say there's an operation and I'm like, well, we'll be done in 15 hours. I'll keep everybody 15 hours rather than bring in a whole new set of people, right? Just for efficiency's sake. But yes, we break the office staff as well. But that does sometimes mean that those offices are understaffed sometimes. You know, we'll have essentially each physical building shares a manager, has one supervisor on site and one office staff. So they're managing anywhere from 50 to 60 drivers and the correlated routes, about 1.5 supervisors and one office person. So it's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot for them to do. It's very difficult to get your eyes on every single street, but we do try to get people out there to look at everything so that we can proactively understand if we need to retrain a driver, go back over. I mean, again, when it snows, it starts snowing. I get this concern a lot. You didn't come down my street. Well, we did. We have ABL in every truck. We know we were there, but we were there early. We got to come back.
What is AVL?
ABL is our vehicle location system. So I have a map and I can see when every truck has gone down every single street.
Cool.
I have a question, and sorry if I missed this earlier. And then, yes, thank you for all the work you do. For properties that are city-owned or vacant lots that are city-owned, what is the policy for snow clearance?
Sure. So we try to adhere to that same level. We don't want to be out of our own ordinance. We do have contractors that are supposed to go out. But quite honestly, you know, there's hundreds of them, and sometimes even our contractors find that they have trouble getting staff in. And in fact, we found that early on this winter that one of our contractors didn't have enough staff to actually go out and clear that. So obviously we try to pivot as quickly as we can to a different contractor and get those cleared up as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Sure.
Jake? Thank you for your patience in waiting, Jake.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if I remember what my question was. Okay. I'm gonna I want to go back to the. Can I talk?
We're losing you a little bit.
Go ahead, Jake. It's all yours.
Hello. Test. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, because can we go back to the kind of the start? I want to really just make sure I understand the so I love to report. I love using that app. I report as much as I can. Hopefully that's helpful. And but my question kind of stems from that. Please, if you can review what the pedestrian, the private residents like reporting and clearance time frame and process for that real quick, just because I want to make sure I'm speaking correctly here.
Sure. So you help me understand what your question is a little more.
Okay, so I'm going to give a scenario here. Maybe that'll help. I bike my kid to school or to my office, and I see, sidewalks that are not cleared 24 hours after a snow has stopped falling. So I report them, and then they don't get cleared. A week later, 2 weeks later, they're not cleared. There's also a few kind of like habitual offenders, like people I feel like I report every winter that just never want to ever clear snow. And so I'm trying to understand I wanted to hear what that policy was, because I heard it as 24 hours after a report is filed, which is 24 hours after the snow has stopped, that they're all being cleared. And so I guess please repeat that policy so I'm understanding that right. And then what's the clearance rate on those reports being done, because I just don't believe that it could be 100%.
Sure. So the process is you report. By the end of the day, we download that data and we send it to our contractor that night. The contractor begins work on that list that night or early the next morning and should be completed within 24 hours. Now, if you're telling me that you're reporting and no contractor is following up, I would need to pick through if there was something going on with that. However, I will say that there's also I want to make sure that there's an understanding of the expectation, because a contractor may come and clear, and if the snow has been tampered down and walked over and frozen, the contractor will clear the snow from the entire sidewalk and then use an abrasive like sand or salt, and depending on temperature, that may not melt all the way down. So I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying it's important to understand the expectation of what materials can and cannot do and what they're capable.
Were you saying nothing was cleared at all, Jake, or that it was?
From what I can tell, but I mean, yes, I think that particularly our last large storm, right? I mean, it dumped a lot and it froze. And so I guess that's kind of my follow-up. Like, do you think that, in that particular situation, like that just prevented the ability to clear any of these reported problem areas?
Well, so I'm just going to adjust the language on that. It didn't prevent us from clearing. It just, what happened is the contractor did it, but you're not going to see, the results that I think you would have saw if someone was out there quicker, sooner, or if the resident would have done it proactively, just because even with calcium chloride, and we found this on city streets, even with the calcium chloride, which is supposed to be, work at that lower temperature, that was not even cutting through that ice and the hard pack that had formulated. And so, it's an expectation thing more than did they go do it or not? Because we do have, so just so you know and are aware of our process, we send the contractor out to do the clearing, but then we actually have inspectors that go behind those contractors. Contractors are required to show up, take a picture pre-work, do the work, take a picture after the work. And then we have inspectors and supervisors that go out on the street for anything that's questionable and to check quality.
But if they came out and they couldn't do much because it was already trampled, because it was too late, because sometimes even 24 hours after snowfall being reported, it's all people, especially in like a business district like Kinnickinnick, it's already been trampled. The contractor comes out, they can't do anything because it's frozen. They still got paid. The sidewalk is not clear, and now we're just waiting until the temperatures have warmed enough to do anything. I mean, I just feel like that's what happened. Like,
I mean, again, words are important, because a contractor showing up and saying they didn't do anything is very different than the contractor showed up, addressed what was feasible and possible, and used the material needed, and the temperatures were so low that nothing, regardless of who did it, would remove that hard pack from the sidewalk. I mean, that's a Mother Nature thing and a weather thing more than it's did our contractor do the correct job?
Okay, so I guess my follow-up then is there any sort of situation about like habitual offenders on private areas, particularly in like high traffic business district areas?
Sure. Actually, I have a citation here, and I'm just going to read right off the citation. So it says a special charge of $50 has been assessed, and you are hereby requested to remove the snow and ice hazard immediately, or the city will carry out the removal. There shall be an additional special charge of $75 for failure to clear or otherwise abate any condition that remains a violation, plus removal cost. The special charge for subsequent violations within the same calendar year will be $100. So there is.
How many of those? I'm sorry. How many of those are issued each year?
I can get that information. I don't have it in front of me though.
Yeah, it'd be great to have
Sure.
that.
And what if there's multiple violations within 1 year? Does the $100?
It just keeps,
Or
but yeah, it's just $100 and then another $100 and then another $100, correct? And I'll get you that data.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Do you know how many, is everybody that has a contract to come out is getting a violation or?
Yes.
not? Okay,
Yes, if there was a report, you're getting a violation regardless.
got it.
Because we only follow up on violations after 24 hours from the snowfall. So we know if someone reports it,
Mhm.
it's after the 24 hours.
Got it. Appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm under the impression that there were 3 of them in 2023. Does that sound correct and accurate?
Not at all. We do hundreds.
Okay.
But I will verify.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'd really be interested in seeing the amount of like reports versus amount of tickets issued, if that's possible.
Yeah, so actually, someone just walked me over some information here. It looks like from January 2023 to January of 24, there were 1,933 service requests for snow and ice. And we cited 503 of them. So that's how many citations were written. 487 were sent to the contractor and 197 were actually abated by the contractor. So meaning the contractor showed up, the citizen had already done the work and the contractor moved on.
are those private properties, like residential properties or like private business?
They're probably a mixture of
Mixture.
both because we treat them similarly.
Mary Beth?
Yeah, I apologize for how weird this question is going to be. Since I do education around this, I just get a lot of very specific questions. So for the 24 hours post snowfall, how do I, resident, know when I'm supposed to report these? And if I report them before your 24-hour mark, will you still come and do this process? Sorry, I think I'm the one digging. I apologize. I didn't know why it's doing that. So that's my question. It's about this 24 hours. Like, is there a notification on the website about like what the time clock is from counting down? Is there, and if I did report it, let's say 4 hours after the snowfall, like, will you hold on to that or will you be like deleting that report? I think that's the question I've gotten from a couple of folks.
Sure, I would have to ask my enforcement division how they manage and handle those. Typically, if it's a large snowfall event, we actually do not even have our call center turned on to accept those complaints because we know we're still working, right? We're still within our 24 hours and we're still trying to do the initial pass and residents are still, within their 24 hours. But let me dig into what happens to those online requests because I did recently find out in the last couple of weeks that online portal and app stay live even in the middle. And I didn't realize that. I thought we sort of had that blocked out. So let me look into that a little more. And can I follow up with the group on the actual details of how they work and the process for that?
Absolutely.
Also, if you do outreach, the city actually has, it's kind of old now, but maybe we'll revamp it. We actually have a pamphlet that we hand out to businesses to help them understand our snow and ice policies and rules and how to comply and what the requirements are. And I would love some feedback from you on how we maybe revamp that and make that more useful to specifically it's businesses, but it could go to residents too.
Definitely always happy to help out. And that way, I've made my own pamphlets too for residents to try to help them understand. Just wanted maybe a quick comment on like the idea of shutting down the system though. If I see something at 23.5 hours, like I do think that should still be something I can report if you're going to look at it that night. But and then it'll, so I would just like ask for maybe some caution if we're going to shut things down to still say, if we aren't going to get with the contractors until nighttime, we should still be accepting reports even before the exact 24-hour period. because then you're kind of really looking more like a 36-hour kind of timeline. And I think then we're shutting down people's interest in reporting. And that I think is a huge, huge challenge when I talk to people is there's no point in reporting. They never fix the potholes. They never do this. They never do this. I'm not saying that, DPW fan over here. But when people have criticisms, concerns, and distrust about other things, trying to get them to report snow is really challenging because they connect it to all these other issues they imagine, as you probably all know as civil servants, right? So I think anything we can do to not make it harder to report, I just want to put that out there because it's already challenging enough to get people to believe me that you can report things to the city.
No, that's good feedback. It certainly is a balance. So for example, during the last snowfall, the snow officially stopped at 9 a.m. and by 11, we had over 800 complaints already. And I mean, the snow had only stopped a couple hours prior. So it's really hard for our staffing level to weed through, is this a real complaint versus is this just, the perception that, we aren't going to get there, even though we just haven't even gotten there yet. But I would definitely look forward to having more conversation with you and whoever else wants to conversate with me on this, on what's the balance, what's the right way to balance that out so that we are, to your point, building trust and building connection and rapport and relationship with the public, but also balancing out the reasonableness of the operation so that, we can find maybe a sweet spot there.
I think I have had my questions answered. Did any committee members have anything they wanted to say prior to moving on to the next item? But I thank you. I appreciate you both coming here and answering questions and explaining it in great detail. I appreciate all the staff that work to clear snow and ice. Really appreciate it. So thank you again for your time.
Anytime. Thank you.
The next item up is the Sherman Boulevard reconstruction, redesign. Reconstruction.
Yeah.
Great.
Good morning. All right, I'll share the screen. All right, so good morning, everybody. I'm Jesse Jefferson with DPW Major Projects. Thanks for the invite to chat about the North Sherman Boulevard reconstruct project. Definitely an exciting project, and we're having a lot of fun getting going on things. So, got about a 10-minute or so presentation. I'll whip through that pretty quick, kind of give some background on things, and then I can open it up to any questions after that. So, just kind of get everybody on the same page. For the project summary, the limits are from North Ave to Capitol Drive, so right about 2 miles, right in the heart of Sherman Park. So really cool with that. The proposed scope is a reconstruct, which essentially means it's fair game to do what we need to do, right away line to right away line, sidewalks, front yards, driveways, that kind of thing. Then looking at the project schedule where we're at, we've been going on this project about a year at this point. We had a public information meeting last August that really reached out to the public, to the community, to stakeholders to see where some of the needs are, everything else. Took a lot of that input, brought that into our last public information meeting, which was in January, just a couple weeks back. And right now, that green star where we're on the screen, that's where we're at between the second public information meeting and the third PIM. So moving real quick on the project. By summer, we'll be working on final engineering. So it's moving along real quick. And then looking at construction for this project is 2026, 27, and potentially 28, depending on how we see the complications of things. So where we're at right now, we are essentially seeking the public input on our concept alternatives. And so we presented 4 of those alternatives at the previous public information meeting. Those were developed from different paths, including inputs from the public and stakeholders, also keeping in mind our city policies and goals. So that includes things like the Complete Streets policy, the Climate and Equity Plan, the West Side Plan, and then also really that third point is using the design guidance, so getting into the NACDOT guides, and also NCHRP 1036. So not to get too nerdy on this, but NCHRP is a great document. I'll talk about it quick after this slide. And then also keeping in mind other peer cities, also other cities that have done some really good things for complete streets. We've been keeping an eye on that as well and what we can implement. So I have a lot of words up on the screen. I don't like putting a lot of words on the screen, but they hit this better than me. So NCHRP, just to spell that out a little bit, that stands for the National Cooperative Highway Research Project, Report 1036. And so NCHRP is essentially a publicly funded think tank in the world of transportation and engineering, funded by FHWA, which includes other partners throughout the federal government. It also includes AASHTO, which WSDOT contributes to that as well, and the National Academies of Science. So whenever we have a document as prestigious as an NCHRP, it's a very well viewed place to figure out information. So in this project, we've been able to use that report to help us along with the process. And I'll just take a couple slides here and geek out a little bit on some of the parts that we've used to date. So this is a quote on the screen from Kittleson and Associates. They're one of the bigger players on the consultant side for the active transportation space nationally. And so their quote here is, they said this report sets a new safety standard for all users, including transit riders, pedestrians, and bicyclists. The step-by-step framework presented in this guide helps planners, designers, and anyone interested in helping build safer communities assess the potential impacts of different roadway space allocation choices and understand the inevitable trade-offs. So if anyone wants some good reading, there you go. You can pick up that document. It's free.
Is that a recent report?
It's about a year old. This report's about a year old. So, and then a couple graphics that spell out a little bit more how we've been able to use the document. And step 1, define your limits and set your goals. That's essentially what that first public involvement meeting helped out with. And then number 2, this is the big one, consider the context through a safety lens. So essentially start there, think about safety the best we can, especially when it relates to vulnerable users. Sherman Boulevard is a classic example of a street that has a lot of serious issues with reckless driving and other safety problems. The third point, is there enough space to build a safe road? In the case of Sherman Boulevard, this is one of the nice projects we get to work with where we have a lot of right-of-way. And so we've got 120 feet of right-of-way. So there's definitely enough space to build a safe road. So that's where we drop down to that next check mark with the yes. And then what do we want to achieve beyond safety? So there's other things in here we can do, like more green infrastructure, tree canopies, ways to make a better place and a better space for the neighborhood. And then number 5, develop the design options. So we did that a few months back when we came up with our different alternatives. And then really where we're at right now is evaluate and choose the cross section that serves your community's visions and needs. So, and that's when we come up with the next public involvement meeting, we'll have some more of that to share. A couple other graphics from that piece. Graphic on the left, relationship between roadway design and community impacts. So when we make the decision to go with roadway allocation, I really think of the safety and the mode shift, and the result of that is better outcomes with equity, health, environment, and the economy. So all things that jive with our city plans and goals. And then the piece on the right is really our diagram of a modal hierarchy. So essentially, where we prioritize our designs, and essentially it goes from the most vulnerable users down to the least vulnerable. So in this case for us, starting with pedestrians and then ending up with private automobiles. So a little recap of some of these alternatives. This is the graphic on the screen is essentially our invite that we had for our previous public involvement meeting. Excuse me. Our existing roadway, 2 big giant slabs of concrete out there in each direction. No real stranger to that. 2 11-foot lanes in each direction with 1 9-foot wide parking lane, not including the gutter pans. And so getting into some of these alternatives, the first one is what we consider essentially a minimal build, or what you've also heard probably no build as some of the things. It's a little bit more than a no build. This is what minimally that would be put back in place if we were to do nothing extra, making the addition of on-street bike lanes, trying to come up with some small minor safety changes like closing down the parking lane. That's a plan view of what it looks like. Nothing too crazy there to see. On-street bike lanes. Second alternative, we start introducing the protected bike lane concepts. In the case of alternative 2, it's one-way bikeways on each side. And so, and essentially alternatives 2, 3, and 4 are very similar with the roadway, where there's a 10-foot wide lane in each direction, and then an 11-foot wide lane in each direction on the outside. That's to accommodate the 30, to make sure that we keep that going. And then also we introduce this parking pod concept where we allow for some parking, but for the most part, that space that's previously been used for a parking lane is sealed off for green space. And on a plan view, nothing too crazy there. Parking pods are kind of scattered about to make sure that we've got space for deliveries, other uses. The third alternative, roadways, essentially the exact same thing, but we introduce a 2-way sidewalk level protected bikeway here. Another way that adds some additional green space. There's some complications to 2-way bikeways, but the intent here would be put the bikeway on the east side of the roadway to essentially make a path from Washington Park through Sherman Park and then working your way north on that way to link that up with as few crossings of major thoroughfares as possible. Plan view. Again, road is similar. The bike is just held to one side. And number 4, and this is the linear park concept. There was feedback to see what we could do about reducing Sherman to 1 lane in each direction. And this is what a concept could look like for that. Several different ways you could do this, but we went with the linear park just as a way to visualize how to utilize that center boulevard that we have out there today. This extends it to about a 45-foot wide green space in the middle. And so this was an interesting concept to bring up. And for the big thing here, it's trying to get people to think and realize the potential, the possibilities of our spaces, and help generate some more interest in what we have out there, not necessarily even on this project, but even on future projects, what the possibilities are available. So. And then the plan view shows essentially the 2-way multi-use path down the median, and the roadway lanes push farther out. So coming up next, what we're looking ahead to, public involvement meeting number 3. This is when we'll present our preferred alternative and get some more input on more detailed set of plans. And we'll still be able to fine tune some of those design details, get a good chance to see where that's at, and then proceed to final engineering. So things are coming up quick. I encourage anyone out there to, share your opinions. There's a few different ways. You can go to improveshermanboulevard.com. That's the the main landing page for the project. There's a lot of information there. Also links to sign up for emails, take different surveys. And so we've also have a new survey out now that really starts to look forward to what the different alternatives, get deeper into like how some of the how people see some of the different alternatives, things that we'd like to move forward with, things like that. So. And the final landing page here, just my contact information. Also, our public improvement manager, Alyssa Tapia, is on there too. You can get to us both ways through there, but then also Sherman Boulevard at Milwaukee.gov is also the project email for that as well. So I know it kind of went over it a little quick. There's a lot of good concepts, a lot of real big things in the project. But yeah, feel free to go onto the website, take a look deeper into that, and then feel free to reach out with any questions. Otherwise, yeah, right now I can take any other questions that you might have.
This is a state connecting highway.
This is a local program.
So it's not. So it's smaller than like national.
So local program essentially means that the city runs the project and WSDOT is making sure we're in compliance with federal regulations.
Got it.
Yep.
Barry?
Yes, I've lost my voice, so I'm going to try to speak as loud as I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. First off, yeah, thank you for this. This is really exciting to see. Just kind of a question, thinking about some of these alternatives like number 2 and 3 specifically, considering Walnut, right, and the work that was done on Walnut Street. I've been riding down Walnut quite a bit since the new construction has all happened there. And just kind of one thing for me, I can say just as a rider feeling it, when I cross some of those intersections like Walnut and Fond du Lac, etc. And as much as I prefer those off street one-way bike lanes or bike paths, when I reach an intersection, there's a certain sense I have of, oh goodness, I hope that the drivers notice me here, even more so because I've been kind of off to the side. And I don't know if it's too early to tell or if there's any available data, in regards to Walnut, but has there been any discussions over, is that just more my own instincts or fears, or is that something that is also kind of like that we lose if we have these off-street bike lanes, like more awareness of, who's crossing an intersection if they're a bicyclist?
No, definitely valid. I feel the same way when I'm out there. It's tough to be visible. It's tough to be a part of essentially the infrastructure that's out there. And one of the big differences that we're proposing on Sherman as compared to Walnut is bringing more of protected intersections to the main signalized areas. That helps highlight a little bit better areas that we can cross by bike and by foot. Also gives a little bit more of a protected space, because I know what you're saying on some of the spots on Walnut. You go out there, it's a little bit more open, a little bit more vulnerable per se. So we're trying to nail that down a little bit more. I know the protected intersection at 6th and Walnut there is, that's more of the compact style. We're hoping to open things up a little bit more on Sherman with the space that we have to try to help that out as well. But yeah,
I would just add to that. I think overall, this is Mike. I think the data nationally shows that adding separated bike lanes makes things much safer. Intersection design is critically important. I think the example at Fond du Lac isn't the ideal design for a few reasons. One being that with the skew of Fond du Lac, you're crossing, a kind of a higher speed right turn, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that the Walnut and 6th example is a really good example of, slowing down turning speeds at intersections is really important with separated bike lanes. And I think ultimately we will find that they are much safer.
I guess on that, I know that Walnut and 6th recently was approved for no turn on red signs. Is that something that you would consider at signalized intersections here as well, where it's,
yeah,
somebody might be separated and so slowing people down?
Yep, that's definitely something that we're looking at. I believe the latest version of the MUTCD now mandates that And so we're still trying to get that final,
Mandates no
Final
turn
ruling.
if there's a,
if there's a protected bikeway. And so we're still looking into that, but we might do it anyways when it comes to that.
excellent.
Also how we can do better with signal phasing, right arrows, green arrows, that kind of thing to help that out as well.
Okay,
Yeah, Laura, please.
Um,
Go ahead.
obviously love the linear diagram. Can you maybe go back and show how wide is the linear path in the middle?
So right there, we've got yeah, sorry, these details are a little fine because they're from our boards, but yeah, so the path in here is about 12 foot.
Okay. So we heard Danielle talk about how making it wider is easier to clear the snow, but that also means that a vehicle, including a truck, can fit on it. And so again, with this, would there be any bollards or Jersey barriers to prevent folks from taking their new speedway down the middle? Which again, love this, but to make sure that vehicles are not going on that part if this design was approved.
So that's where we're gonna have to sharpen our pencils, because that's been brought up as other concerns. Even Milwaukee County's brought that up with Sherman Park too, that there's issues with cars just jumping up and doing their thing. So yeah, we're gonna have to sharpen our pencils a little bit, make it a little bit more difficult, make it appear more difficult. And so that might mean, say, splitting that 12-foot path at an intersection and making it so the only way you can get on there is a difficult right turn up and over a curb kind of thing.
I think that's what Jessica just said in the chat.
And then, but also the intent with how Danielle put it earlier too was make it so plows can plow this.
Right.
And so that there's a better response time and that as well. Yep, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, so with the linear park design, the center median is pretty large. Did you ever consider doing like a transit way down the center?
We have not, and the reason we've worked with MCTS kind of on their long-term plans where they're looking at, they don't have anything at the moment for any type of enhanced transit way through there. Alternatives 2 and 3 do give us the opportunity to hold that outside lane for a future date. So there's been some consideration there that if, somehow MCTS changes their operations in the next 5-10 years and they can increase some of those frequencies, they might be able to take that outside lane on the other alternatives. But as far as a dedicated transit way, that hasn't been considered.
Anybody have any other questions or comments? Mary Beth?
Yeah, I apologize. I probably could have asked this at a public meeting. So I like the idea of the linear park. Do you know if it's totally infeasible to do it on one side versus in the middle? I just know from a safety perspective, I probably wouldn't use it. I would just feel trapped. So I'm kind of curious if that's infeasible. And this is a broader question maybe about road design and how symmetrical they have to be versus can we do some things that are a little bit less symmetrical?
Hey, thanks for your comment, Mary Beth. Yeah, the world is our oyster essentially, and especially in a reconstruct, we have a maximum flexibility on how to move things around. And so one thing we've been trying to say as well with these alternatives is you can take any individual concept, move them around. They're all plug and play into any other different concepts. So yeah, we can definitely, move paths onto either side. We could add more green space to either. We could push things more to the middle and have more green space in front yards. Alternatives 2 and 3, that was the intent, was steal from that median because it's kind of dead space and then use it on the outsides to enhance front yards, add a little bit more green space as far as that goes. So there's good flexibility.
Montavious?
Jesse, how many cars are on the stretch of road?
So we're looking at between 25,000 a day and 28,000 a day along the stretch.
off the top of your head, do you know what kind of road that's comparable to?
Sorry, what'd you
Besides
say?
Sherman? Do you know off the top of your head another road that has comparable counts?
Fond du Lac is comparable.
Arts and Capital.
Parts of Capital, yep. So this is right up there with our busiest streets.
Thank you. I really like concept 2 and 3, and here's why. If we go with concept 4, there's no chance of a bus lane ever in the future. This is locked in place, and at these traffic counts, we're making bus drivers, or excuse me, bus riders sitting in traffic with the other 23,000 cars, or 20 up to 28,000 cars, whatever the number was. So I want us to be cognizant of that. And if I'm correct, I think studies show that the one-way bike routes are safer than the two ways, given intersection concerns, people turning left to right. So I think just this concept that's in front of us, alternative 4, really hampers our ability in the future to change anything. If it turns out that MCTS decides that we have additional capacity, we could add more routes. That can't happen on this stretch of street with this alternative.
Yeah, thanks, Montavious. And yeah, another thing to add too, in working with MCTS, when we do have the 2 lanes in each direction, they've been okay with us using in-lane boarding and those options as well. So those outside lanes almost act as a bus lane in itself.
Anybody else have comments or questions?
I'll just mention that these are like a great transformation, so that's fantastic to see. Any of these options are a huge improvement over what's there currently. Just to put on everyone's radar, the Stadium Freeway, there's a planning study right now with DPW, DCD, and the state looking at different options for the Stadium Freeway, and it does connect up to Sherman Boulevard. There's going to be a public meeting likely at the very end of April. That's going to be announced soon. I can share that date when we have it. But just wanted to put it on everyone's radar. That'll go. The study limit goes to Lisbon Avenue, but there'll be some options that look at Sherman Boulevard and Lloyd Street. So looking at, it's all connected. So wanted to make sure that folks are looped in. And Jesse, I might reach out to you. There might be some public, some like advisory committee meetings that you might be interested in attending. And
yeah, thanks, Monica. Yeah, definitely be willing to help any way I can. And yeah, great point about kind of the interconnectedness with the other projects. The other thing to note too is that we're looking at potentially being able to connect Walnut to that Washington Park, Lloyd, and Sherman Park area as well. So this is essentially a key piece of an emergent network. So that's where we really got to get it right, and also looking forward to the future.
I just wanted to highlight that just put in the chat, the linear park design seems like a lovely evolution and enhancement of the emerald necklace concept of linked parks, parkways, and boulevards to connect Washington, Sherman, McGovern, Havenwoods, and Schenecker eventually. Did we have any other comments or questions for this project? Hearing none. Thank you, Jesse. There's another, here you said there will be another public information meeting in April.
We're looking at April. Yep.
So you have another comment, or is that
coming up real quick?
Did I miss it?
I don't know. And Kate.
Or Kate, did you have a
Yeah, I was just hoping that the project would also redo the Center Street, redo the Center Street intersection, and have a protected intersection for bikes, because the long-term project the city, or long-term desire the city has for PBL between 60th and Humboldt. Or yeah, Humboldt. Yeah, wait. Yep, Humboldt.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Yes, our intent right now, we're proposing putting protected intersections at all the signalized intersections to make it future-proof. And so that any project that comes on any of those arterials would eventually be able to tie into it.
So, thank you.
Thank you much.
All right.
Well, thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So those were two out of the, or not regular agenda items. We can move into our work group updates. Did targeted improvements get to meet in the last month, Barry?
No, and I don't believe we have any big updates unless Kathy and Ben, you want to chime in.
No, I don't have anything.
Sorry. What about projects, Montavious?
Projects did meet last week, and our discussion revolved around setting priorities and how we're going to decide which projects we select. I think we've got it narrowed down. One of the projects we're going to be focused on for the next year will be the Sherman Boulevard project, continuing to figure out ways to push the word out, gather additional community feedback. I think we will continue to monitor those public involvement meetings, trying to figure out how to get other community groups and organizations to submit their feedback. So what we'll continue to do is figure out what the criteria outside of Sherman Boulevard is for how we select projects, and figure out what our capacity is to influence that, whether it's neighborhood engagement, stakeholder engagement, pushing out the word from this body, writing, letters of our preferred alternatives. So we're still working through that kind of strategic process. But our meetings, we plan to meet monthly on the fourth Friday. Right now there are 4 of us, so we can't have any more. Those 3 of us. So I think we have room for 1 more board member, but all our work groups are open to the public. You don't need to be on the board if you are interested in this work. We do need additional capacity. I don't know about the other boards, but we can definitely use it on ours. Or excuse me, the other work groups, we can use it on ours. So even if you're not a member of the committee, you can take part in volunteering for the work group.
Excellent. Thank you. Did the policy work group have any updates, Anna?
Yeah, we also met last week. So we discussed the future of the daylighting work. And I think for now, the plan is to take what would have been our resolution for the city and rework it to be to go into the legislative file to encourage changes at the state level to the daylighting law. And then we're also exploring what the next issue will be that we pick up after that is wrapped up. Hi, Kira. Yes, thank you, Sweepy. So yeah, more updates next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I do have one additional update for the policy work group because I have been working with one of the alders to redo some of to redo the ordinance regarding snow removal, snow removal requirements. And she would be interested in feedback from this committee about what
the pedestrian, from the bicycle and pedestrian standpoint, what is reasonable, what, that sort of thing. The draft isn't quite ready for prime time yet, but I know that she is looking for feedback from various community groups to come up with something that's workable and an improvement on the current situation.
Yeah, I mean, if she had, when there's a draft ready, I think we would definitely be interested in taking a look. Awesome. Was there anything else related to work groups or any of the work groups that we wanted to discuss? Otherwise, we can move into our events or announcements.
New business.
Or sorry, new business, right? Is there anything that we want to make sure or put on the agenda for next time that we know we want to discuss? I don't think we had anything come up this time that I can recall, but is there anything from anybody else?
Mike, feel free to chime in on this if there's a better route for it, but is it worth at this point checking in on the Hank Aaron State Trail crossings that we opened a file on in the fall with DPW?
I can provide a quick update. I don't know if it warrants an agenda item yet, but it's something that we are working on, developing the signage plans right now and any pavement marking changes. So yes, we are moving forward for this year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other new business or potential new business? Jake?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Event announcement, April 29th.
Wait, sorry, 1 second. I prematurely started events. We're still on new.
Any agenda item, potential agenda items going forward.
Sorry. I don't think we.
No, maybe not. Sorry, I'll wait.
Yeah, sorry, that was my fault. Did any committee members have any agenda items that we wanted to discuss next time or consider next time? Otherwise, yeah, okay. Yeah, we can move into events and announcements. Please go ahead, Jake.
Okay. Monday, April 29th is the Wisconsin Healthy Community Summit, and I am very, very excited to have gotten the author Jesse Singer of There Are No Accidents to be our keynote speaker. I think that it would be a really great opportunity for anyone who is available to make it to please join us. Information is on wisconsinbikefed.org.
Cool. Highly recommend the book as well. Sorry, book being There Are No Accidents specifically. Any other events and announcements?
Hi, this is Jessica. I just wanted to share that we do have a second Vision Zero open house. Actually, maybe I shouldn't share. We can just email the flyer out. But Tuesday, February 27th is the second Vision Zero Action Plan open house. It's at Mitchell Street Library from 4:30 to 7. I could use a few volunteers if anybody wants to come. It is set up where the activities do kind of run themselves, but it's just good to have people there to help people and answer some basic questions, especially if you speak Spanish. I would really love to have you. But if anyone wants to be involved, please send me an email. And there's also, I'm sorry, there's also an online survey. I'll put the link in the chat. And if people want to take that survey and share it, that's much appreciated as well.
Awesome. Thank you. One event that I was notified is coming up is there's a community meeting on the Lapham Boulevard changes that recently happened. I believe Alderman Perez is hosting it. It is next Monday, February 19th at 6 p.m. at South Division High School. And we have separate event, but we have our regular critical mass ride next week, Friday, February 23rd, rolling out from Red Arrow at 6. Fun, social biking with your friends. Are there any other events or announcements?
One announcement, we have Laura Boulder here, the new executive director of Bubbler Bikes. So everyone should get to know Laura if you don't know her already. I'm assuming most do, but super excited as a DPW person, but also as a board member to have Laura on board. So welcome.
I know most of these people.
Gabe?
Not in Milwaukee, but also the 21st is the reconstruction meeting for Silver Spring. And that is Silver Spring Drive. And that is from it's 6 to 8, and it is at the the Glendale Village Hall at 5909 North Milwaukee River Parkway.
Thank you. Anybody else? Doesn't sound like it, but that about wraps us up. I would entertain any motions to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I think that was Montavious and Barry. Thanks, everybody.
That's in March.
March 15th is the next one.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.